Hey, welcome back to the food forest. It's been about 2 weeks since the last video, which is longer than I wanted. Been super busy actually harvesting some of the fruit that's growing this year. We're under a pretty extreme heat wave, as I know many of you are, so definitely make sure that you're staying safe. Make sure you have access to something that can cool you down if the power goes out and you lose your air conditioning. Super important. Make sure that you check out my video from last year on what is critical wet bulb temperature. It could very well save your life this summer. Make sure you check that out. I'll leave a link up here. For today, I'll go walk around and show you some of the stuff that's growing, some of the things that are taking my time, harvesting all this food. And look at the pond. Isn't it just, look at all the flowers. We've been adding wildflowers in to our pond, so we've got things like chicory and black-eyed Susan coming up now, rudbeckia species. We've got a whole bunch of things that are in flower right now and just making the pond look absolutely stunning and making sure that the insects have that food that they need all year long with a nice, diverse, robust timing of various flowers all through the season. So let's go walk around. I'll show you what kind of stuff's going on. Maybe we'll do a little update of the pawpaws. I'll show you they've dropped quite a bit of fruit, but we do still have quite a bit left. And just talk about, plants, how they work, that kind of thing, and I'll show you the food forest. So let's get going. Okay, so first thing that's been taking a lot of time is the quote-unquote annual garden. This is where I grow a lot of the annual plants, but we do also allow some perennials in there as well. And you'll see, we've been harvesting these raspberries every single day, bringing in buckets, and every day there's just more and more. So it is just a constant battle to make sure that we get value out of all the food that we've planted so far in our permaculture journey, and making sure that we are also expanding our gardens at the same time, which just comes down to a time check, really. How much time do I have? I've also been taking some divisions of some plants, like we've got sorrel down in here. We've been kind of digging that out as these perennial features grow. I want to make sure that we're keeping our semi-perennial biennial plants that maybe shorter lived but not necessarily annual green crops and stuff like that, and moving those from there into our garden beds. So here's a raised bed that we're growing a bunch of tomatoes in. Normally I trellis my tomatoes. This year we're trying a bit of a different experiment. We're going to let them bush out and just do whatever they want to do. And we're going to see how that compares, at least in one of the beds here. So this is just a bed of tomatoes. We've got some cherry tomatoes. So I saw that and I thought it was ready. But yeah, that one's not ready yet. So we've got tomatoes that are going to be coming in and growing, putting on a big crop. Very excited for that. Okay, and here we've got another bed of tomatoes, but we've done this one more like a polyculture. So we've got some beets in there growing as well. We've got some orach in there as a salad green that we eat. There's kale in here that we've kind of been harvesting, and I think we've maybe harvested most of it because I can't really see much of it. We've got Egyptian walking onions. I'm actually just walking over some really nice, I believe this is thyme, and it is just covered in bees. So I have to be careful where I walk because we allow our grasses to grow and flower, like the buttercup there and the creeping thyme, and we just have to make sure that we don't get stung too much. We've got all of these Egyptian walking onions putting on their heads. These bulbet heads we can rip off and plant them and spread those around, so we've been doing that as well. That's just something else that we like to do. Here's another bed of peppers. So we've just harvested the peppers. There's probably not too many left. We just took a crop. We've got some spinaches in here. You can see the tomatoes. For anyone wondering what this is, we chop and drop weeds and put them in here, and this is like an in situ worm tube, so this actually goes beneath the level of the soil. So anytime I see some lamb's quarters that I can eat, but if I don't want those, then I can just pull up a bunch and just drop those into the worm tube for the worms, and then that way I'm kind of composting in situ. So I really like that idea. We've got some sweet potato growing up in here as well. We've got carrot all in the back here and some kale. So look at this. We're in the middle of a heat wave and we're still eating delicious kale. Absolutely wonderful. Very, very nice. This wild and crazy bed here, all of these are actually, I'm allowing this mustard greens to go to seed so I can save the seed. And this is a really easy way to make gardening free. We've got spinach growing underneath it, and it seems to be doing just fine in that kind of understory. So basically I've just allowed this to go to seed. We can actually use this mustard seed in different recipes if we want, but then we can also save it for next year's plants and bring the cost of gardening down to zero. But more importantly, we bring the self-sufficiency of our system higher. You know, even sometimes if something isn't cost effective, it might be worth doing just to get the resiliency in case next year we don't have the ability to get seed. I can still save a bunch of seed this year and become very, very self-resilient to any kind of disruptions. I think that is so important, and more people should focus on that. Okay, I'm just wandering away from the annual beds and getting lost in our food forest now. We've got a real forest growing at the moment, and it is just so wonderful to get lost in here. As the food forest develops, this is the thing that I find, I think, the most fun, is that our gardens and our food systems really feel different. It's very, very different, and the camera's getting caught on plants. We've got all of these kiwi growing and curling around. I've got the camera stuck on grapes. And we've got the ladies in here. This is our wonderful protein, fat source of food, just in case, you know, the world goes to heck in a handbasket. We are good. We're actually training some of these kiwi branches down to the ground, and actually did one of them come out, and you see we're tip layering them. So we're putting them in the ground and letting them grow up, and that way we can actually dig some of these out. They'll root into the ground. And these raspberries here, I'm actually in the run. So the raspberries are fully available for the chickens to browse when I let them out and into here. And they can actually jump up on these sticks that I've put down as kind of little bridges, so they can jump up and flutter and grab some of the raspberries if they don't fall. We also sow in some greens into this area so that they can kind of pick that out. And they're just very, very happy in here, living a very wonderful life. They usually spend the evenings in here, and if we're away, we put them in the kind of coop and run. But they have access to being let out here into the wider area. Some people have commented on that before, and I just want to kind of show that kind of thing. So we've got this fencing that I'll just pull up when I want to let the chickens out. So I pull that up, and then we connect it in the back there, and then they have the access to this whole area where they can roam around, get raspberries, kiwi fruit that falls, and they can actually get right in. You can see the fence here, and it gets in here, and then it's swallowed by all of these raspberries. So they're in here browsing, you know, eating all of this wonderful food. I can harvest anything that's outside of the chicken pen because I don't really want to harvest anything in there in case, you know, their feces and, you know, all of that, obviously. So I can harvest all of this, and we have been, and this is just where all my time has been going. So sorry for the 2-week wait on the videos, but you can see how much food is coming into the food forest. I just can't keep up with all of it, and I want to make sure I get value out of it. And I pick it and I freeze it and I turn it into, I've been eating it with my yogurt every day. I'm eating it with water, like making flavored raspberry juice, taking that to pickleball when we go. My wife and I are playing a lot of pickleball lately, and it's just really, really fun to just go out and have a grocery store in your backyard. Super, super nice. Speaking of resiliency, here's the wall of resiliency. These are Jerusalem artichokes, and I mentioned these quite a few times in my videos. This is part of, I actually have a video on these specifically. So I think it's called something like, if you grow one crop, this should be it. And this is just because this is a staple food that you can eat in times of emergency. It's part of the sunflower family. You can feed these to your chickens. The leaves and everything are fully edible. They're a great plant for if you have a deer pressure. These are about to put on some really nice flowers. They're just like a small sunflower, and deer love these things. So right about now, when deer are looking for, apples, your fruit trees, to eat the fruit off your trees, they love Jerusalem artichokes. It's one of their favorite plants, one of their favorite foods. So if you plant these at the deer side of the entry into your system, then the deer will, fancy themselves on this. They'll spend all their time eating this, and that might pull a little bit of pressure off of your fruit trees. We've got hazelnuts here. This one here is not putting on a crop yet, and we just have to be careful because the Jerusalem artichokes get right up over this, so we kind of stomp them down around the hazelnuts just to make sure that the hazelnuts can pollinate with the other hazelnuts, because they're actually wind pollinated. We've got a mulberry tree that's been putting on a lot of mulberries this year, but they're kind of being picked at by the birds, so most of these mulberries are all gone. It's just the tiny little ones that are left, and we've been feeding these to the chickens as well. I might do an update video on mulberry because I actually believe it's one of my favorite trees for your food forest. And I mentioned earlier in the season that we picked varieties that are native and local to here. So the red mulberry are actually native to here. The white is not. So that's why we picked that one for our food forest. Figure we might as well stick with the natives in any place that we can. We're seeing a little bit of insect damage. This is probably Japanese beetles. And I mentioned in another video, I like seeing this because that means that my trees are actually supporting some form of life. So some people would see this, oh, and there we go. Unfortunately, it's this. So these are invasives, and not much eats these, but the chickens do. So we collect those and we feed them to the chickens, and we turn Japanese beetles into eggs. But it's not only Japanese beetles that eat these. There's lots of moth and caterpillar species that will eat the leaves of your trees, and this is actually a good thing. A little bit of that is a good thing. It's important to leave that so that your predators get naturalized on the land as well, because they need to have the food to eat. We've got the persimmon trees here, and we were saving some sorrel. So this is some sorrel that's going to seed, so we're saving this. We can give that to the chickens, and then we can use it to plant at another time. We've got persimmon here as well, and this one did have persimmons on it. So this one does have some persimmons on it. One there, one there. So fairly small persimmon tree, but the persimmons are coming on it. And then here is the pond. So the pond's looking really, really nice. Just tons of flowers growing everywhere. It's funny, I always show the pond, but because I'm a plant guy, I usually actually focus on the plants. But the pond water is very clear. It's very nice this year. You can see that we've bent over some branches of sea buckthorn in order to act as shelter, to give fish somewhere to hide from predators. But they do love that warmer water of that phototropic layer of the pond. And the pond water is totally safe. Doggos come out here and they've access to some drinking water as well. And then this is another resiliency thing. So I've got 20,000 gallons of fresh water. I would probably want to boil it, so having some backup propane tanks for the barbecue in the in event of a catastrophic collapse of society. We've got that. We've got tons of wood around as well that we can start fires and boil water. But having access to fresh drinking water is very handy, as well as in critical wet bulb events, having access to fresh water to cool down. If the power goes out and the temperatures are crazy, then one of the ways that could save your life is to jump into a water source like this. It'll be warmer than you'd like, but it will keep you alive. So the doggos are enjoying the oregano that I kind of let the oregano grow wild all along the pond. Great flowers for bees and insects. These are just opening up, so there's going to be nothing on it yet. And then we can pull these and feed this to the chickens as well for a nice healthy alternative of a snack. We've got all of these ferns here that are great forage in the springtime. We've got some more kiwi So we've got cold hardy kiwi that we're training and growing right up the house and across. Probably not the best idea, but I can always erase that and cut it down if needed. But that might be something that I do, and I am actively thinking about that. And at the top of the pond here, we've got Pawpaw, and we've got a little snail boy chilling out. So I like seeing nature using my plants. I don't destroy that and fear for it. I think the pawpaws are going to grow just fine, even with snails on it. And this one's putting on fruit. This is really nice to see. Here's another big one here. I'll get the camera in there. So a huge pawpaw. Bunch of pawpaws there. And we've got some snails right next to it sitting on a leaf. But I'm not worried at all about that. And I will leave them. I've never lost a pawpaw to snail damage yet, so I'm not going to overreact and remove those, not at all. Chicory going to flower. We've got some sorrel going to flower as well. These are wild sweet williams. And we've got daylilies back there. The daylilies are fully edible. You can eat the flowers as well. And then we've got this wildflower area. All of these Shasta daisies coming up right now. This, was a wild lawn that I spread a bunch of flowers in, and now it is just more food for the insects. And we make sure that we do cut pathways, make sure that it does look nice and is accessible and useful for humans, but we do make sure that the insects also get value out of our food forest as well. So we've got a peach tree that had severe peach leaf curl problems this year, and I didn't have the time to really micromanage it. So we're kind of doing an experiment, seeing how well the new leaves can handle a little bit of peach leaf curl, and they keep popping up. They'll get infected, they'll fall off, and we'll see if they put a decent crop on, and more importantly, we'll see how this tree responds next year to a little bit of neglect this year. We pruned it and we thinned the fruit, so we are fully loaded up. We'll get a good year and a good crop, and we'll just see how that works for next year for the health of the plant. And if it's really bad and this is a problem, then we just won't grow peaches here anymore, or just as a hobby, one or two here and there, but we'll focus on the things that just go crazy here. That's, I think, the best way to do it. So we'll get into the food forest maybe on a second video. Maybe I'll just cut this one short here. We showed a bunch of stuff, and I will do another tour, only because I just got a text from my wife that I gotta be running, and I gotta go meet her for a doctor's appointment. So I'll leave you here, this wonderful linden tree, all this flower and comfrey, and we'll catch up at another time. So thanks for watching. I'll walk you through the food forest, the rest of it, later on. Hope you're having a wonderful and safe, very warm summer. Thanks for watching.